I am being pursued by the two most popular girls in school. At the same time, everyone is incredibly envious of me. They think I am rich and powerful, that I can choose any princess in the school at will. However, no one knows that their confessions to me are merely following their master's orders. From beginning to end, this has all been a scheme against me. I'm just a pawn in their game. Unexpectedly, just when they thought they could toy with me at will, treating me like a fool, I slapped each of them once. Because this is my second life, I have been reborn. Looking at my youthful, wrinkle-free face in the mirror and my still fair knuckles, after a brief moment of astonishment, I quickly picked up my phone to check the time. June 26th, 2024. This was my college entrance examination period, when I was choosing my major, and also the time when my two female friends from my previous life, Emily and Sophia, began to show their affection and confess to me. A flash of surprise crossed my eyes, and without thinking too much, I grabbed my phone and rushed straight to the office. "Ms. Laura," I said, "I want to change my major. Switching South City University to North City University." Upon hearing this, Ms. Laura smiled with delight. "Have you finally come to your senses?" she said. "You're the top scorer in the college entrance examination in the city. Although South City University is also quite good, North City University is the highest institution of learning. It would be a shame not to go there." I forced a bitter smile and replied, "In the past, I was too willful. I'm sorry, teacher. Now I want to change back." Changing my application didn't take much time. Soon I had completed the changes. However, when I got home, there were already a few unexpected guests. It was my two female friends, Emily and Sophia, and my good buddy David. I asked, "What are you all doing here?" The usually aloof Emily was now full of warmth, smiling at me and saying, "Did you forget? We agreed to have dinner at your place today to celebrate that all four of us got into the same university." Sophia, being willful and headstrong, stepped forward a few paces to stand beside me, gently tapping my head. "Big dummy," she said. "If I had known you were busy preparing your outstanding graduate speech these past few days, we would have set this up a long time ago. You just needed to come and eat." I was just about to speak when my phone suddenly rang. It was Ms. Laura calling. "James, you left in such a hurry just now that there was something I forgot to tell you. Originally, you were scheduled to give a speech as an outstanding student in 3 days, but suddenly two influential board members spoke up at the same time and changed it to David." Ms. Laura's tone was filled with regret. Clearly, from any perspective, I, the top scorer in the college entrance examination, was more suitable to give the speech. I didn't know what kind of relationship David had with those two board members to be able to have them personally intervene and change the decision. But compared to Ms. Laura's confusion, I glanced at Emily and Sophia in front of me and understood it. Weren't the fathers of these two childhood friends the school board members? I said, "I understand now. Thank you, teacher." I calmly nodded, accepting this matter. Ms. Laura seemed a bit surprised that I was so calm. "You are the top student. You will definitely give a better speech on stage. This is also an honor. Are you really going to give it to David?" I remained calm and even smiled a bit. "Let it be. Not only this time, but even Emily and Sophia, I have given to David. After all, I never want to experience the suffering of my past life again. In my past life, both Emily and Sophia once loved me like this, eager to present their hearts to me for the first time. I married Emily, but in the 3rd year of our marriage, Emily died in a car accident while protecting David. And it was then that I realized she had never loved me. The person she had always loved was David. I was hit hard by a double blow and fell into despair. Sophia reappeared in front of me at that moment. She accompanied me out of my sorrow, welcoming me back to a new life, telling me that I still had her. So for the second time, I married Sophia. After we got married, her tenderness towards me remained unchanged, but at the same time, it gave me a feeling of mutual respect. At first, I thought it was because love had transformed into familial affection. Until the elderly David was diagnosed with heart disease, Sophia disregarded my objections and unhesitatingly donated her heart. And that was when I realized that the person Sophia loved was also David. I didn't understand why. Since both of my wives liked David, why did they still marry me? It wasn't until the funeral that David mercifully revealed all the truths to me. He said, "Why did they marry you?" Of course, because all of this was planned by me. I told them that if they didn't listen to me and marry you, I would disappear from their world forever. They were all scared, which is why they rushed to confess to you. By the way, do you know why you never had a son or daughter in your life? Because they all voluntarily got on birth control. For me, they told me that even though they married you, their hearts would always belong to me, and they would never have children with you. Ha ha ha. I felt like I had been struck by lightning, and I desperately asked David why he did this. And his reasons were just as ridiculous. He said, "Why? Of course it's because I'm jealous of you. You were born a noble young master, living a life of ease and comfort, while I have to fight tooth and nail for what you can obtain effortlessly. I can't accept that. I just want to see you suffer. I want to tell you that the happiness you cherish is just an illusion." After saying that, David left triumphantly, while I was so furious that I spat blood and met my end. Now, the heavens have pitted me and given me a chance to start over. This time I absolutely will not get involved with them in any way. Chapter 2, David asked, "What's wrong?" After the call ended, David curiously leaned in, while my expression remained unchanged, as if I were discussing something completely unrelated. I said, 3 days later, the person giving the speech has been changed to you." David replied, "What's going on? I didn't do as well as you, nor am I as capable as you. So why has it suddenly changed to me? I can't accept this. I need to hurry back and prepare." His eyes were filled with surprise, and after speaking, he hurriedly ran out. Emily and Sophia didn't try to keep him, but their gazes all fell on his back. Their love for him was evident, wishing they could leave with him at that very moment. I absorbed their gazes and said, "If you want to go, then go ahead." Emily said, "What nonsense are you talking? You're still here. Why would we go after him?" With that one sentence, Emily was instantly brought back to reality. She looked at me again, unable to help but chuckle. After a pause, she pretended to comfort me, saying, "It's just a speaking slot. Don't be too upset." Sophia also mentioned, "Exactly. James is so impressive. It's the school that lacks vision for replacing you." Sophia also echoed Emily's words. I tugged at the corner of my lips, saying nothing. In my last life, they comforted me like this too, but in reality, it was they who arranged for the replacement behind my back. I was just about to say something, but before I could get the words out, I was interrupted again by Emily and Sophia, who said, "James, we're taking you somewhere." I was mysteriously pulled out by them. It wasn't until we reached our destination, where I was greeted by a sky full of flowers and colorful balloons, that I realized this was a confession spot. Emily pulled out a bouquet of white roses from somewhere, looking deeply affectionate, and said, "James, you should be aware of my feelings for you during this time." Now I want an answer. Seeing this, Sophia was unwilling to fall behind. She quickly took out a bouquet of red roses from behind and presented it to me, her voice filled with tenderness. "James, I liked you first. I have prepared for this confession for 3 months, and you must choose me. As long as you agree to be with me, I will love you for a lifetime. You can have me do whatever you want." Looking at these two people, I was momentarily taken aback. If I hadn't learned the truth, seeing their affectionate expressions, I would probably really believe they loved me. We were once the best childhood friends. How did I not realize before that they had such talent for acting? Just as I was about to speak, several phones suddenly vibrated at the same time. It was David, who left early, sending a message in the group chat of the 4 of us. "I just blew up a light bulb while fixing it, so be careful when you fix light bulbs in the future. Now, I have to bandage my wound." And there was also a pitiful expression following behind. In an instant, Emily and Sophia both changed their expressions. Emily couldn't care about confessing anymore and stood up first, saying, "Someone got hurt at home, so I'll go help with the bandaging first." "I'll go with you." Sophia quickly stood up after her, and after speaking, she seemed to remember that I was still here, awkwardly saying, "James, it's about to get dark soon. We can't delay over there. As for who you ultimately choose, maybe you can just tell us tomorrow." After speaking, neither of them paid any attention to my reaction and hurriedly left. As for me, watching their backs, I couldn't help but find it very funny. Clearly, the evidence that Emily and Sophia don't love me is overwhelming. Yet in my past life, I was blind to it and never realized. I lowered my gaze, my eyes landing on the 2 bouquets and gift boxes they had left behind. A smile tugged at my lips, though the joy didn't reach my eyes. I picked up the flowers and gifts without a moment's hesitation and tossed them all into the trash can. Emily, Sophia, in this lifetime, I won't choose any of you. With 2 months left until school starts, to reduce my interactions with the 3 of them, I simply blocked all contact with Emily, Sophia, and David and went on a solo trip for a month. When I returned home after having enough fun, I saw 2 people squatting at the door, and it was none other than Emily and Sophia. The noise from the suitcase caught their attention. When they saw it was me, they hurriedly ran to me, each hugging one of my arms. They worriedly said, "Where have you been for the past month? You didn't answer your phone or reply to any messages. Do you know that we've been going crazy looking for you?" The worry in their eyes seemed genuine, and I couldn't tell how long it had been since they had properly rested or taken care of themselves. At this moment, their eyes were bloodshot and in such a disheveled state, it was hard to believe they were the 2 most popular girls in the affiliated school. I looked at them and inexplicably thought back to when I was 13. My parents couldn't stand the constant arguing and chose to divorce. But when it came to discussing my custody, they began to push the responsibility onto each other, neither willing to accept me as a burden. In the end, they left me with a house and a car to support my living until adulthood, and then they both disappeared. On the night my parents left, I didn't cry or make a fuss. But by evening, I quietly ran out alone. At that time, Emily and Sophia were also anxiously searching for me all night and finally found me by the lake. They were also nervously saying to me at that time, "Uncle and Aunt have left, but we are still here. They don't want you, but we do. We will always be with you from now on. Never leave alone again, or we will really go crazy." Chapter 3, a hint of melancholy flashed in my eyes. Clearly, our relationship used to be so good, yet the ones who hurt me the most in my past life were also them. I still don't know how they came to like David, but everything has already happened, and we can never go back to the past. There's no point in getting tangled up in the reasons. I pushed them away and said calmly, "I went on a graduation trip." Emily frowned and asked, "Why did you go alone?" Sophia also looked at me disapprovingly and said, "Aren't you afraid of getting lost? Didn't we agree that the 4 of us would go together?" Seeing that they naturally included David, I didn't show it on my face and reminded them, what we said before was that 3 people would go. Emily suddenly paused, as if just realizing, and asked, "You don't like him? Then let's keep our distance from him in the future." "Okay. I was just thinking that when the 4 of us are in the same school, I should take care of him a bit more. If you don't like it, we can reduce our interactions. The most important thing in my heart will always be you." If I hadn't come back with my memories, perhaps hearing their statements would have genuinely moved me. But now I just calmly walked past them, heading towards my room, and I said, "I'm going back to put away my luggage. I have to go." Emily and Sophia quickly followed me. Emily said, "Today the class organized a gathering for the students, and the gathering is a barbecue by the seaside. Let's go together. The North City University I want to go to is far away, separated by thousands of miles. We probably won't have any intersection in the future," I thought. It would be a good opportunity to say goodbye to my friends one last time, so I agreed. Many people came to the gathering. Almost all the classmates were there, including David. It seems that my sudden decision to go on a trip alone scared the 2 of them. Emily and Sophia, indeed, kept their distance from David until I went to the nearby restroom halfway through. When I came out, I saw the so-called goddess Emily and charming Sophia outside the restroom. Both with their heads down, they were holding David's hand like obedient little dogs, nuzzling their owner, begging not to be sent away. They said, "Please don't make us chase James anymore, okay? We can't pretend any longer. Every moment with him is torture. The person we really like is you. So why can't we stay by your side?" David was surrounded by them, with a barely noticeable sense of pride and satisfaction in his eyes. After listening to their words, however, he did not relent as they wished. He said, "No way. I've said it before. If you don't marry James, I will disappear from your sight forever." Upon hearing this, Emily and Sophia immediately panicked and quickly changed their words, saying, "We will be with him no matter what. We will make it happen. How do we do today? If it was good, can we get a reward?" David smiled and slightly extended his hand. The two of them quickly threw themselves into his arms, as if they were holding the most precious treasure in the world. I couldn't stand their antics any longer, so I turned and walked back to the gathering from another direction. Soon, Emily and Sophia also returned one after the other, walking straight towards me, offering drinks when I was thirsty, food when I was hungry, and a coat when I was cold, almost serving me like a king. Some classmates were watching them curiously, gossiping to me. One is cool, and the other is charming. The two most popular girls in the school are both pursuing you, James. Who do you plan to choose? Hearing this, the two of them also gathered around, their eyes shining with a hint of expectation. You didn't give an answer that day. Do you have an answer now? David, who had just fallen a step behind, happened to hear this, and a teasing look came to his eyes. The scene I just seen floated back into my mind. My gaze flickered, and I didn't directly answer their question. I only said, "I'll tell you the answer on the first day of school." Suddenly, a suggestive voice came from behind me. It was David who said, "Then let's look forward to that day." Then, with great interest, he said to me, "James, the shells here are beautiful. Let's go collect some to take back." I furrowed my brow, about to refuse, but he slung his arm around my shoulder and pulled me up. Then we walked further and further away. Seeing that we had distanced ourselves significantly from the gathering place, I suddenly pushed him away, frowning as I said, "Aren't we supposed to collect shells? Why are we going so far?" He said, "Here, there are quite a few shells." David smiled innocently and pretended to be curious, subtly leaning closer to me, and asked, "James, you just said you would choose after school starts. Why must it be after school starts? I'm really curious. Can you tell me in advance?" "I can't tell you." I looked coldly, refusing without mercy. Yet he seemed oblivious and continued chatting. He said, "Are you still unable to decide? Do you want me to help you see who loves you more?" A sense of foreboding suddenly surged from the depths of my heart. Just as I frowned and thought to say it was unnecessary, a sharp pain shot from the top of my head. I instinctively turned around and saw David holding a stone the size of a palm, grinning triumphantly. In the next moment, my vision went black, and I completely lost consciousness. Chapter 4. When I woke up again, the salty smell of the sea filled my nostrils, and I was horrified to discover that both David and I were currently submerged in seawater. "Help! I can't swim." I instinctively began to struggle, but the more I struggled, the more seawater I choked on, and my cries for help grew weaker. In my blurred vision, I vaguely saw two figures rushing over like mad and jumping into the water. It's Emily and Sophia. However, as expected, I soon realized they all swam towards David's direction. In the next moment, I lost the strength to struggle, and my whole body sank towards the depths of the sea. When I woke up again, I was already in the hospital, and Emily and Sophia were all by my side. Seeing I was awake, they hurriedly began to apologize. They said, "James, I'm sorry. It was too dark at the time. We mistook you for him and went to save him first. Please don't be mad at us, okay?" The traces of lying were too obvious. I and David had no similarities whatsoever. No matter how you looked at it, they would go to save David first simply because David was their true love. I forced a self-deprecating smile, silently turning my head away from them. It was at that moment that the nurse walked in and said, "The boy next door has woken up too. Do you want to go see him?" Hearing the nurse's words, the two of them instantly became restless. After waiting for a while, they looked at me, who was still turning my back to them and unwilling to speak, before finally speaking up together. "He caught a cold too, and he's all alone here without anyone to rely on. Let's go check on him and come back." After saying that, the two of them got up and left the ward together without looking back. Meanwhile, my phone rang. It was a message from David. "James, I originally wanted to see who liked you more, but I didn't expect them to save me. I'm sorry. Maybe they felt sorry for me being all alone, so don't blame them. This silly remark fails to stir even the slightest ripple in my heart. I still ignored it and quietly turned off my phone. In the following days, Emily and Sophia were constantly running around. And whenever the nurse came to change the dressings or check on them, she would always exclaim how good their relationship was. But only I knew that their hearts had always been focused on David, while every moment spent beside them was a torment. Coincidentally, I also didn't want to see them. I said, if you have something to do, just go ahead and take care of your own business. As soon as these words were spoken, both of them felt a stir of emotions. But thinking about what was most important to them now was finding a way to marry me, they ultimately held back and said, what else can we do? You're injured, and nothing is more important than you right now. Exactly. What could be more important than taking care of you? By the way, James, are you hungry? It's almost mealtime. I'll go buy some food and come back. Looking at the two people who still wanted to stay by my side, I didn't say anything more, just told myself it's okay as long as I wait until school starts. Everything will be over by then. The three of them will go to South University, and I will go to the far away North City University. One in the south and one in the north. I will no longer have any intersection with them. A few days later, David and I had both recovered enough to be discharged from the hospital. On the day of discharge, all four of us received a phone call saying that the admission notices had arrived. David said, then I'll head home first. School starts soon, so please take care of me from now on. David waved goodbye to Emily and Sophia with a smile, and the two also smiled back in response. Yeah, we'll see each other then. Emily and Sophia watched his departing figure, their eyes filled with affection, until I got tired of watching their sweet love and left first. Only then did the two come back to their senses and hurriedly chase after me. When they got home, there were already 3 packages at the door. Emily and Sophia didn't think much of it and directly opened their own packages. When they looked up in my direction, they saw me calmly holding my package and preparing to leave. The two exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with confusion. They asked, James, why aren't you opening it? Is it stuck? We can help you. As soon as the words were out, the two naturally took the package from my hands and opened it. However, when they saw what was inside, they suddenly froze, their expressions shocked. Emily asked, James, why is your admission notice different from ours? Chapter 5, I said, it might be because the academies are different. I quickly snatched the admission notice from their hands, maintaining a calm expression as I casually explained, I'm a bit tired, so I'm heading back now. Emily and Sophia furrowed their brows, feeling that something was off. Just as they were about to ask again, I had already stepped through the door, shutting out all their voices and gazes. The two exchanged a glance, and an inexplicable sense of irritation rose in their hearts. Recently, I've been giving them a different kind of feeling, as if something is out of control, but they can't notice it, nor can they grasp that feeling. Emily said, Are you going to talk to him? Emily unconsciously felt that I was angry and wanted Sophia to ask about it. Sophia was irritated and ran her fingers through her hair, speaking irritably. I'm too lazy to go. I'm tired of pretending. If you want to go, you go. I want to go find him. He should have received the notice by now and must be eager to share his joy with us. I want to go too. After speaking, the two of them tacitly chose not to mention the matter of asking me again and hurriedly left. Their departure was so decisive that they naturally had no idea that at this moment in the hall, I was watching this scene clearly through the visual doorbell. Watching their departing figures, I smiled. Soon, the three of you will be able to be together forever. However, that evening, Emily and Sophia still came to my house. Their faces were full of smiles, which completely masked the way they had pushed each other to ask me earlier that day. Emily asked, James, have you been feeling down lately? Didn't you always want to go to a bar after graduation? We have time today. How about we go together? I did indeed say such things before. At that time, they rejected me vehemently, saying they were proper girls and wouldn't want to go to such places. Yet now they had suddenly agreed. However, in this new life, I no longer wish to go. No need. I haven't wanted to go for a long time. I shook my head to refuse their invitation, thinking they would only persuade me a couple more times before leaving. However, to my surprise, they took my refusal as insincerity and directly dragged me to a nearby bar. In front of the bar, I ordered a cocktail with a very low alcohol content. The dazzling lights shone on me, and because there were so many people, the air conditioning was set very low, making me shiver involuntarily. When Emily noticed, she quickly took out the scarf she had prepared and tied it around my neck. While Sophia was not to be outdone, she took an apple from the fruit platter and started peeling it carefully. Once it was done, she presented the apple to me with a flourish, saying, "James, have an apple." They took care of each other to the extreme, and jealousy was no exception. I only glanced at the girls dancing on the dance floor, and Emily and Sophia immediately stood in front of me like formidable opponents, saying, "James, you are not allowed to look." What's so interesting about these people? If you want to see, we'll let you see enough. Someone passing by saw this scene and immediately understood, casting a teasing glance at me. But the next second, the two women blocking me became stiff, as if they had seen something shocking. I turned around following their gaze and saw a scene not far away that was obscured by the noisy atmosphere. Dressed in a work uniform, David was holding a drink, surrounded by a clearly drunk, delinquent girl. Her arrogant expression suggested she was saying something that made him instantly red-eyed. Seeing him endure without daring to resist, that delinquent girl even started to get physical. With their beloved in trouble, Emily and Sophia held their breath. Their brains not yet processing the situation, but their bodies had already reacted. Without caring about me over here, they immediately rushed over, each giving that delinquent girl a slap. The scene was suddenly chaotic. The delinquent girl was slapped until she spat blood and kept begging for mercy, while David beside her was also scared and kept saying, "Emily, Sophia, you two stop fighting. If you keep going, someone will get hurt." Chapter 6. David's voice finally brought the two back to their senses, and they finally stopped their actions, not forgetting to throw harsh words at the delinquent girl lying on the ground. They scolded, "Apologize, or we'll slap you every time we see you." At this moment, the delinquent girl had long sobered up and dared not say more. Seeing that they finally stopped, she hurriedly got up unsteadily to apologize. After receiving a "get lost," she scrambled away. The delinquent girl ran away, and Emily and Sophia looked at David with lingering fear, wanting to blame him but reluctant to do so. Finally, just sighing, they asked, "Why did you take a part-time job in a place like this?" He lowered his head submissively and explained softly, "I haven't saved enough for my tuition yet. We'll cover it for you." Upon hearing this reason, both of them were somewhat displeased. With their conditions, why did he still need to raise tuition himself? They immediately yanked the apron off him, their tone leaving no room for refusal, as they said, "This place is full of shady characters. You can't come here anymore." Just as I wanted to pull him away, I suddenly remembered something and turned around to see that I had also walked over at some point. Seeing me, Emily and Sophia seemed to recall the impulse from earlier, their expressions freezing for a moment, and said, "James, don't get me wrong. We're all classmates, and we'll be attending the same university in the future. We just don't want to see him go down the wrong path." David said, "Mind your own business." I don't know what in the sentence struck a nerve with David. He suddenly reddened his eyes, turned his head, and ran out of the hotel. As he ran, Emily and Sophia didn't think about anything else. They hurriedly followed him without bothering to explain to me. Having seen enough of the show, I only felt a lack of interest. Just as I was about to call a taxi to go home, a hand suddenly reached out from behind and covered my mouth tightly. Ignoring my struggles, a few people directly dragged me into the bathroom and locked the door. It was only now that I recognized the faces of the people who had dragged me in, one of whom was surprisingly the delinquent girl who had just been slapped by Emily and Sophia. I shouted in panic, "Someone help!" It was supposed to be a bustling bar, but my cries went unanswered, and the person in front of me remained completely unfazed, even appearing more composed. She said, "You can call, but I've already hung up the repair sign outside. No one will come. Today is really lucky. I encountered a student who paid me to properly fix you. A broken bone for a red envelope. Why not?" Hearing this, I could no longer understand that these thugs were actually hired by David. The earlier act of being threatened was fake. He probably just wanted to lure away Emily and Sophia. The real intention was to destroy me. Seeing those thugs rushing over, I could only kick one in front of me away, then awkwardly hide in a bathroom stall to call for help. It takes time for the police to arrive, and clearly it's too late to call for help. However, Emily and Sophia haven't gone far. As long as they come back, it can definitely save me. I first called Emily, but the call went through and was automatically disconnected without her answering. I called Sophia again. 1 call, 2 calls, 3 calls. After a series of over 10 calls being automatically disconnected as the door to the cubicle was pried open by a thug, a wave of despair washed over me. The moment he lunged at me with a sinister grin, just as the thug burst through the door, I suddenly slammed into him, frantically searching for a weapon to fight back. My gaze finally landed on the aromatherapy candle holder placed beside the sink. With a bang, I ran out of the bathroom covered in blood, and just as I reached outside the bar, I saw Emily, Sophia, and David still there. David said, "James has called you so many times. Are you really not going to answer?" There was a strange light in David's eyes. Although he looked worried, there was a hint of disdain beneath it. Emily furrowed her brow and coldly scoffed. What could he possibly want? The most important thing right now is you promise me you won't come to places like this again. Sophia was blunt and directly turned off her phone, her voice filled with indifference as she said, "His death has nothing to do with me. The only person I care about is you. Don't worry about him for now. The most important thing for you is to quit this part-time job immediately." Chapter 7. All right. I was only here to try for a day anyway. Since you don't like it, it's fine if I quit. I just don't want to take your money. Surrounded by 2 people, David pretended to be modest and lowered his head, completely hiding his pride in the shadows. Emily's brows relaxed, and a hint of a smile appeared in her eyes. She said, "Everything about me, my heart, my life is yours. Why should I care about a trivial amount of money?" Sophia also said, "From now on, you're not allowed to say such things again." When facing David, Sophia's voice and expression unconsciously softened a bit, and the atmosphere among the 3 was so harmonious that it seemed to leave no room for anyone else. This is Emily and Sophia, who have been my childhood friends for over 10 years and once promised to always be by my side. Yet now, for someone else, they can disregard even my life and death. I smiled slightly, said nothing, and prepared to leave directly. But unexpectedly, this commotion caught the attention of a few people over there. Seeing me in such a bloodied and disheveled state, they were all taken aback and hurried over to ask, "James, what happened to you? What's going on?" I was just about to speak when David, who was closely following them, suddenly spoke up and said, "I think I might have had a bit too much to drink. My head is spinning. Could someone please help me get to the hospital?" As soon as the feigned weak voice sounded, Emily and Sophia's expressions changed immediately, and in an instant, they all surrounded David, speaking one after another. Chapter 8. I'll take you there. Neither of them was willing to back down first, so they quietly competed with each other while leading him away. In an instant, I was once again left all alone. The next day, I got up early, finished washing up, and went to the police station with the recording I made in the bathroom yesterday to file a report. After listening to the recording, the police immediately summoned David. But a few minutes later, the people who arrived were not David, but Emily and Sophia. Without asking questions or showing any concern, as soon as they stood in front of the police, they characterized everything as a misunderstanding. Then, the several bodyguards they brought directly dragged me away. I only felt a wave of helplessness. How did this police station end up being like their private domain? Once we left the police station, the 2 of them turned to me with grim expressions. "James, why did you frame us?" I had long anticipated their reaction and couldn't even be bothered to explain. I just took out my phone and played that audio again. "Today is really lucky. I met a student who paid me to fix you." The thug's voice clearly reached the ears of the 2. Emily and Sophia were momentarily taken aback, but in the end, they still just looked at me and said, "He is so pure and kind. How could he possibly do something like this? Can you even forge recordings now?" Listening to their unconditional trust in him, I actually felt a bit tempted to take revenge. But it's really not worth sacrificing my reborn life for these few people. I said, all right, since this police station won't help, I'm moving on to the next one. I couldn't be bothered to waste words with them, broke free from the bodyguard, and turned to leave. They didn't pursue me. Emily coldly spoke up and said, we've already made arrangements. The entire South City won't take your case. I turned back in disbelief, looking at their stern faces, feeling as if struck by lightning. I could barely stand. Is the sky in South City really this dark? After all, we grew up together. Seeing my collapsed state, Sophia softened her tone a bit and said, James, stop messing around. First of all, this isn't even something that should be done. Even if it were, we're all classmates and school is starting soon. You don't need to ruin someone's future. At this moment, I truly marveled at the logic of these people. I was about to be beaten into a disability, and they actually said I shouldn't ruin someone else's future. Chapter 9, I felt both angry and pained. Indeed, in their eyes, I wasn't even 1/10,000th as important as David. I said, yes, he is kind, and I am malicious. I was almost ruined by someone else. How can I compare to his pitiful act? I, the victim, was almost ruined just because I reported it, losing my reputation and future. From childhood to now, this was the first time Emily and Sophia had seen me so angry and desperate. Their hearts suddenly tightened as they thought of my blood-soaked appearance from yesterday. Just as they were about to say something, I had already turned and left. In that moment of turning, I was biting my teeth so hard that they almost bled. It's okay. It will be over soon. Soon we won't have any more intersections in our lives. I don't know if it was because my last outburst the other day touched them, or if it was just because David still hadn't given up on having them pursue me. But in the following days, Emily and Sophia would send various gifts every day to apologize. Yet I always shut the door on them. Instead, I busied myself with putting this old house up for sale. I had already made plans to settle in City A and didn't want to come back. Because the location was quite good, the house was only listed for 5 days before an agent came knocking. Mr. Wong, I have a client here who really likes this house and is willing to pay a high price for it. But that client is buying it for a deceased relative. They believe the layout of this house has good feng shui and want to burn it for the afterlife. I'm not sure if you would mind. I don't mind. I shook my head. After all, I didn't plan to come back in the future. Whether they burn it or do something else, it has nothing to do with me. After discussing the details of the transaction, the money was quickly transferred over, and they entrusted me with the task of burning the house as well. I personally sent the agent out, and when I returned, I happened to run into Emily, Sophia, and David coming back together. Emily unconsciously frowned, her gaze turning to the men who had just left, and asked, "Who is he? Haven't I said it many times? Don't let salespeople in. We're not here, and it's not safe for you to be alone." Sophia furrowed her brow, her voice involuntarily tinged with displeasure. David said, "Hey, don't be so nervous. I believe James knows what he's doing." Noticing their concern for me, David deliberately pretended to be understanding and helped me out of the situation, casually showing off the design draft in his hand, saying, "James, look. My design draft just won an international award, and the organizers notified me to go accept it." I wasn't interested in listening to him brag, and as I casually glanced over, I was about to turn away when my gaze froze on the design draft. I snatched the design draft, and upon closer inspection, I realized that this design draft was exactly the same as my previous drawing. Or rather, this was simply my draft. I asked, "How did you get my original draft? Do you know this is theft?" I glared angrily, a surge of rage rising in my chest. But as soon as the words left my mouth, I was interrupted by Emily frowning. She said, "This is my own original work. How could it be your draft?" David also took the opportunity to chime in. "James, what are you talking about? This is the design I worked hard on. How could I have stolen yours? I know you have issues with me, but you can't just rob me of my glory like this." I couldn't be bothered to listen to David argue. After all, who would admit to stealing? I clutched the design draft tightly, but my gaze was directed at Sophia. I had only shown this design draft to her. Sure enough, the moment our eyes met, she immediately averted her gaze, unable to look at me any longer. A deep sense of helplessness rose from my heart. And when I looked back at David, my attention was drawn to the safety amulet hanging around his neck. I abruptly looked at Emily and said heavily, "Did you give the thing I gave you to him?" That safety amulet was something Emily received when she was in a coma due to a car accident a few years ago. I was so anxious and at my wits' end that I heard the safety amulet from Goa Temple was very effective. So I went to Goa Temple to pray for this amulet with 3 bows and 9 knocks. But now she had given this amulet to David. Emily also nervously averted her gaze, not daring to meet my eyes. But at that moment, David suddenly added fuel to the fire, boasting, "I like Emily, so she gave it to me. Is this really that important?" As soon as the words were spoken, Emily and Sophia instinctively shielded David behind them, fearing that I might accidentally hurt David in a moment of anger. But I merely closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and when I opened them again, all that remained in my gaze was calm. I said, looking at Sophia first, "From now on, I won't share my design drafts with you." Then I turned to Emily and said, "From now on, I won't seek peace for you either." After saying that, I swiftly turned around, closed the door, and no longer wished to have any entanglements with them. I haven't seen Emily and Sophia again. Their apology messages come through like clockwork every day, but I know they aren't apologizing because they truly understand their mistake, but because if they don't marry me, they will lose David. This kind of day continued until the day before school started. I finally went to our former secret base one last time. After my parents divorced, Emily and Sophia found out that I liked orchids and bought a piece of land in my name, filling it with various precious orchids. In the past, I would come here every time I was sad, and they could always find me here. Tomorrow I will set off for City A, and this will probably be my last time here. But when I arrived at the secret base, I found that the orchids inside were all in disarray. The petals were scattered on the ground by David for the sake of taking pictures, while Emily and Sophia, who had once lovingly planted a garden full of orchids for me, were now indulgently taking pictures of David, who had ruined everything. It wasn't until they heard the noise and saw me standing at the entrance that the two of them became flustered and hurried over, saying, "James, let us explain. We just saw that he liked taking pictures here, but I couldn't see even a hint of the anger and sadness they imagined in my eyes. All I felt was calm. I said, 'It's fine. You all just keep filming.' After saying that, I turned and left. James, wait." 2 voices called out from behind me at the same time, but I didn't even turn my head until someone grabbed my hands, one on the left and one on the right, and only then did I finally stop and look at them. Chapter 10. Emily said, "Tomorrow when school starts, we will go together. You said you would give us the answer tomorrow." Emily held on to my hand tightly, but a strange sense of unease rose in my heart. Sophia seemed to be competing with her and also quickly spoke up, "Don't go with her. Come with me. I'm also waiting for your answer." The two were secretly competing against each other. I exerted a little force and easily threw both of them off, giving a slight smile and saying, "Don't worry. I've already made my choice." After saying that, I turned and walked away, leaving Emily and Sophia standing there. The feeling of unease only grew stronger, as if something was spiraling out of control and disappearing from their grasp. The next day, I packed my bags and was about to block Emily, Sophia, and David when my phone suddenly pinged with 2 messages. Emily sent, "James, I'm sorry. I have something urgent today and can't go with you anymore." Sophia sent a message, "James, I can't go with you today. Something came up last minute." Seeing these 2 messages, I instinctively opened David's moments. Sure enough, he had just updated a post. "University is great. So many seniors are eager to show me around." I let out a light laugh. Emily and Sophia's so-called urgent matters were just their fear of David being taken away by someone else. I didn't expose them. I just blocked all their contacts one by one. I dragged my suitcase out, taking one last look at the house I had lived in for 18 years. Then I set a fire, igniting it with my own hands. The old house gradually disappeared in the flames. I turned around with my luggage and never looked back. At the South University freshman registration area, Emily and Sophia were the center of attention as soon as they enrolled. Naturally, the flattery they received from David also drew admiration and envy from everyone. He waved goodbye to them with a beaming smile, urging them to go pick up James. He said, Didn't James say he would make a choice among you? Today you should go pick him up so he doesn't end up delaying things. Sophia rolled her eyes and said, He said he had already made up his mind and would speak today, didn't he? Emily said, No way. James isn't the kind of person who goes back on his word. Emily considered things more thoroughly than Sophia did, so after dropping people off, she did not refuse David's suggestion. Emily said, We'll go pick him up later. He won't be angry. Back at the freshman registration area, the two stood there, catching enough to attract anyone's attention. People came to flirt like fish crossing a river, and after sending wave after wave of those seeking contact information away, the person they were waiting for still hadn't shown up. Emily muttered to herself, Where is James? The freshman orientation is almost over. As the sky grew darker, Emily frowned and took out her phone, just about to call me, when Sophia suddenly raised her voice. Emily, something's wrong. Because they were close, Emily's brow twitched, and her expression darkened as she shot her a glare and asked, What are you making a fuss about? Sophia said, James's house burned down. No wonder he didn't come today. I'm calling him right now to see where he is. She hurriedly dropped this sentence and pulled out James's number and dialed it. But in the end, she found out she was actually blocked. Sophia, in disbelief, found his friend again and edited a message to send out. Why did you block my number? After pressing send, what appeared before her eyes was the glaring red exclamation mark right after the message. She tried every way to find his contact information, and without exception, all were blocked. Sophia looked at Emily with a dark expression and shook her head. She said, He blocked all my contact information. You try. Hearing her words, Emily was momentarily taken aback. Recalling James's mention of making a choice today, her expression relaxed a bit, and with newfound confidence, she found his number and dialed. She said, We are all friends. Even if you decide to choose me, it wouldn't mean blocking you. The cheerful tone abruptly stopped upon hearing the familiar mechanical female voice on the phone. She froze for a moment, a sense of foreboding rising in her heart. After trying all the contact methods in the same way, the two finally discovered that James had actually blocked both of them. Emily said, Is it really such a big deal? Just because he wasn't sent to school, is it necessary to be so petty and now he's even playing the blocking game? How childish. Emily let out a scoff, always thinking he was just sulking. Sophia said, Forget it. I really wasn't nice to James a while ago. Let's wait until he comes to enroll, and then we can properly advise him. Sophia's originally unpleasant expression improved a lot after discovering that Emily was also blocked, and she even took the initiative to say something nice. Thinking back on the events of this period, Emily finally felt some of the frustration lift, but her expression still remained somewhat gloomy. The gloom brought on by being blocked momentarily made them forget about James's house burning down. It was only when David called to ask who James ultimately chose that they finally remembered. They said, James's house caught fire, but he blocked our contact. How about you give him a call and ask? The two tentatively spoke up, and David was quite agreeable on the other end. But before long, he sent a pitiful expression saying, James blocked me too. I can't find him either. Originally just extremely frustrated about being blocked, the two of them now became outright furious. Emily said angrily, Can you believe he even blocked us? We may have wronged him these days, but we didn't even hold him accountable for his slander, and now he's taking it a step further. Sophia said angrily, When he comes over tomorrow, he must apologize. Chapter 11. The next day, to avoid missing anything, Emily and Sophia arrived even earlier than the teacher responsible for welcoming new students. But as time passed, and the reporting time was about to end, James still hadn't shown up. They couldn't help but worry if he couldn't come because of the fire at James's house. While pondering whether to take a quick look at James's house, Emily watched the last student arriving for registration pull out their admission notice. Looking at the admission notice that was identical to hers, despite being from a different college, she suddenly recalled the day the admission notices were delivered. Later that day, they went to find David. If her admission notice was the same as Sophia's because they were from the same college, then why was David's admission notice for the art major identical to theirs? Moreover, after waiting for so long these past 2 days, they had never seen another version of the admission notice. And suddenly another guess floated into her mind. She suddenly grabbed Sophia, quickly walking over to a senior who was packing up and preparing to end the orientation, and quickly asked, "Are there any green admission notices from South University?" The senior was taken aback and quickly shook her head. She said, "No. The admission notices from South University have always been red over the years." As soon as she said this, Sophia, who had just been puzzled about why Emily suddenly dragged her over, also froze. Clearly recalling the green color she had seen when opening James's admission notice that day. South University has never issued a green admission notice. So where did James's admission notice come from? In a moment when the contact was blocked, both of their faces suddenly turned pale and their minds went blank. It's impossible. They clearly agreed to take the entrance exam for South University together. With his top scores in the city, there was no way he could attend a school he didn't qualify for. He must have changed his application himself. The two exchanged a glance, seeing the seriousness in each other's eyes, and immediately forgot everything else, rushing out of the school. By the time they returned to James's house, they saw a group of strangers in suits surrounding what had become a ruin of the old James's family home, talking about something. "Isn't one of them the man that James sent out earlier that we saw?" Sophia asked. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Various news reports flashed through Sophia's mind about criminals confirming that the homeowner lived alone before striking. Her heart racing uncontrollably. Emily thought of this too, but looking at the group of well-dressed arsonists in front of her, she felt that something was off. Emily said, "Did you start this fire? Do you know that arson is a serious crime?" She kept her eyes on the group, her gaze vigilant, while the agent, hearing their words, felt utterly confused. The agent said, "This house was specifically bought to be burned, and a special person was hired to watch the fire, ensuring it wouldn't spread to other places." "How is that a serious crime? You really are quite strange." Sophia scolded, "You're talking nonsense." Sophia was inherently willful and unruly. Seeing that they refused to admit it, she immediately decided to call the police. She said, "I know the owner of this house. He has lived here for 18 years. How could I not know that his house was meant to be burned? You are really lying without any preparation." The agent, seeing that their group was being treated as arsonists, was initially a bit angry. But after hearing their words, it seemed they were old acquaintances of the previous owner, and they indeed looked like they were of the same age. So he softened his attitude and began to explain. "It's like this. I am a real estate agent from Shimin Real Estate. Some time ago, the previous owner listed this house with our company and sold it. The buyer is this gentleman beside me, and he indeed bought it specifically to burn for his deceased relatives. The previous owner, Mr. Wong, was also aware of and agreed to this matter. He patiently explained, but the two people in front of him completely ignored what he was saying and even directly called the police over." Emily said, "Do you think I would believe your nonsense? This is the only property left to James by his parents. How could he possibly agree to burn it down?" Chapter 12. The agent considered showing them the contract, but Emily and Sophia were convinced that they were frauds and arsonists. He thought that even if the contract was presented, it would only be regarded as a forgery by them and might even get torn apart. So, the standoff continued until both sides were taken to the police station, still sticking firmly to their own versions of the story. Emily said, "Officer, these are the arsonists. Hurry up and arrest them." The agent argued persistently. Seeing that they were getting nowhere, he simply changed tactics, demanding the purchase contract from another man and slamming it down on the table. "Officer, it's clearly those two girls who are being unreasonable. This contract is written in black and white, clear as day. Yet they insist we forged it and call us frauds. We even want to sue them for defamation." The police officer took the contract, examined it carefully for a moment, then looked at Emily and Sophia with a somewhat helpless expression and smiled apologetically. "Ladies, this contract is indeed genuine. No issues here. And as for the arson matter, it certainly doesn't count." Hearing the police officer's words, the two were stunned. They snatched the contract from the officer's hands and flipped through it carefully. The signature on the last page, wasn't it James? Suddenly, a surge of anger welled up from the bottom of their hearts. Emily and Sophia laughed out of anger. They had never realized before how good James was at acting. Changing his major, blocking them, selling his house, and burning it down. He had done so many things right under their noses, yet he could still pretend as if nothing had happened, saying he would tell them the answer on the first day of school. Who exactly did he choose? Was he trying to choose no one and just sneak away by himself? But at this thought, both of them felt a pang of panic. If they couldn't find James, what would they do about David? Did they really have to watch David disappear from their lives forever? No, this matter couldn't let David know. Just as this thought emerged from the depths of their hearts, a phone rang. Emily looked down and saw it was a call from David. Her heart skipped a beat. Without caring about the situation at the police station, she hurriedly stepped aside to answer the call. Hello? What's wrong? When Sophia saw Emily leave, she instinctively followed. As soon as she joined, she heard David's voice on the other end of the phone. Emily, has James reported in? Did he say which one of you he chose? The two of them looked awkward. Neither dared to tell him the truth, so they could only vaguely brush the matter aside. Emily said, he hasn't said yet. He mentioned that today is just for registration and doesn't count as the official start of school. We have to wait until the first day of classes. Seeing Emily struggling to find the right words, Sophia snatched the phone and awkwardly tried to explain a few things. Upon hearing this response, David's eyes flickered. What? James is acting like this again? He can't possibly like both of you and can't decide, right? He subtly put the indecisive playboy label on James. At that moment, both of them were so focused on preventing David from finding out that James had never even come to South University that they took everything he said as the truth and even echoed his words. In the end, David asked a question with a hint of disappointment. You can't expect us to stay by his side forever, right? But the person we like is you, and we want to be with you, they replied. David said, let James make the first choice anyway. You have to pursue him first, otherwise I will. Before David could finish his words, he was interrupted by the two in unison. We will pursue him. You're not allowed to say anything about leaving. The two of them flirted and chatted on the phone. After hanging up, they directly left the police station, completely forgetting about the people they had brought there. Poor Officer Wong had to apologize to each one of them and personally escort them out. There was nothing he could do. After all, he was just a low-ranking police officer and couldn't afford to offend either side. Soon, Emily and Sophia returned to South University. Originally intending to sort out James' enrollment issues, they unexpectedly discovered something else. Chapter 13 For convenience, Emily and Sophia didn't stay in the school dormitory. Instead, they lived in the apartment that their fathers had prepared for them off campus. They even used their own money to buy the adjacent apartment for David. They originally just wanted to subtly ask if he knew anything about James' recent affairs, so they went to the apartment to find him. Even though the lights were on, no one answered the door when they knocked. Worried that something might have happened to him, the two directly used the key to open the door and walked in. The bedroom door wasn't closed tightly, and David's piercing voice came through clearly. I asked you to take care of James, but you didn't do it either, did you? You've asked for money time and time again. Are you really never going to stop? You heard the phone call just now, and you should know how much Emily and Sophia love me. They are among the top wealthy heiresses in South City, and in front of me, they act like dogs, coming and going at my command. I tell them to chase whoever I want. And even if you expose these things, so what? Do you think they would believe it? Even the childhood friend who grew up with them for 15 years can't compare to me. I could knock him out and throw him into the sea, and they would still come to rescue me first. Believe it or not, I don't even need to say it myself. As long as you dare to get involved with me, you will end up with no place to be buried in their hands. Emily and Sophia became increasingly alarmed and fearful as they listened. They had never imagined that the usually gentle and harmless David was actually like this behind their backs. Nor did they think that the person who almost got James killed was truly someone he had hired. Those audio recordings weren't fabricated by James out of jealousy. And even that time he fell into the sea was because of David. Looking back at their actions during those times, they realized just how cruel they had been. But David had never been like this in front of them before. Deceived by the man they had always cherished, and even being belittled to the point of being called a dog that couldn't leave him, they had actually followed his words to hurt their childhood friend James, whom they had known for 15 years, step by step pushing him to the breaking point. In the end, they had become the well-behaved dogs in his eyes. In that moment, Emily and Sophia suddenly realized that they had been a joke all these years. Sophia, who was already hot-tempered, couldn't contain her boiling anger. At this moment, She kicked the door open with a bang, making a loud noise. Emily didn't stop her. Her expression was equally grim, her dark eyes fixed on David, making him feel terrified. The sound of his heart pounding was deafening, and the violent beats seemed as if they were about to burst out from his chest. He carefully recalled the words he had just said, and his face suddenly turned as pale as paper. He had just said too many things he shouldn't have. Seeing their current attitudes, David sat on the ground, his face ashen. He wanted to defend himself, but didn't know how to explain, only able to pray that they had heard less, just a little less. Emily asked, "Aren't you going to say something?" Emily looked at him calmly, but it made David feel as if he had become a lifeless object in her eyes. A tremendous panic enveloped him, and in his confusion, he could only crawl towards them on all fours. "No, that's not it. Emily, Sophia. You have to let me explain. I didn't mean it that way." Sophia replied, "Well, go ahead. We're listening. Tell us how it feels to be chased like a dog. Explain how you pushed James into the sea and how you spent money hiring people to try to ruin James." With every word she spoke, his face grew paler. By the last sentence, he was completely at a loss for words. David was trembling all over, his heart in a state of utter chaos. They heard it. They had heard everything. What should he do? What else could he do? Chapter 14. David said, "No, I didn't." It was all. His gaze searched everywhere for a reason to absolve himself, finally landing on the phone that had just fallen to the ground. In shock, an idea surfaced in his mind, and he seized it like a lifeline. Suddenly pointing at the phone, he said, "Emily, Sophia, that was never my intention. It was that person. He has been causing me trouble. Before he could finish speaking, he heard a loud slap. His whole body slid half a meter on the ground before stopping, hitting the corner of the bed. A sharp pain shot through his back. David, however, dared not show it, only managing to put on a pitiful expression. Because in the past, whenever he made that face, they would all rush over feeling sorry for him. But this time, he found that they were just looking at him coldly, no longer softening their hearts for him. Seeing that they had already made up their minds not to let him go, he simply decided to give up as well. He said, "Yes, I am malicious. I am jealous of him. James is just an orphan, yet because of his wealthy young master status, he is pursued by everyone. I am jealous of what I can never obtain while he can easily get it. I just want to see him being played around by you all. But think about it, Emily and Sophia. Do you think you are so noble by blaming me here? Don't joke around. Have I forced you to do anything other than to pursue James? He almost got ruined, but couldn't even report it. Isn't that your own doing? I never asked you all to come save me when I fell into the water, nor did I ask you to stop him from reporting it. And I certainly didn't force you to give me his design draft and safety amulet. On what grounds do you blame me?" David finally regained his true colors. Even though the people in front of him were Emily and Sophia, whom he would never have dared to provoke before, the words he spoke at this moment were enough to cut deep. Chapter 15. Emily stopped in her tracks, her gaze sharp and piercing, fixed directly on David. He was so terrified that he momentarily held his breath. Finally, he realized the gravity of what he had just said. In a state of fear and trepidation, he then thought, what did it matter? After all, they clearly had no intention of letting him off the hook. So why continue to pretend in front of them? Sophia said, "David, we were merely deceived by you. You're malicious, and yet you want to drag us down with you. Do you really think a few words can sway us?" Sophia smirked mockingly, her gaze scanning the room as she continued to provoke him. "Even if what you said is true, so what? We will still be the objects of admiration, while you'll only be a rat in the gutter. Just the thought of this house being lived in by someone like you makes it feel filthy." When dealing with someone she disliked, Sophia never knew the meaning of tenderness. In the past, she liked David and was willing to cherish him, but once she discovered he wasn't as wonderful as she'd imagined, her affection vanished just as quickly. David glared at them, filled with resentment. Hadn't they also looked down on James in every way? He'd only done a few things to James, so why were they treating him like this? He said, "I'm a rat in the gutter? Then what are you? Your grades depend on me, and your wealth relies on the Liu and Shu families behind you. At least everything I have is based on my own efforts. But what about you? Without me and those families, would you be anything more than another filthy bug in the gutter? If it weren't for them, do you think I'd care about your affection?" David gritted his teeth and slowly stood up, his eyes filled with hatred. He hated James. If it weren't for him, how could everything have turned out like this? But he also hated Emily and Sophia. They said they loved him, yet they could so easily turn against him. David's words completely enraged Emily and Sophia. Their faces darkened menacingly as they looked at him, but then they suddenly smiled. Emily said, "If you do something wrong, you must pay the price." After leaving this remark, Sophia followed suit. As for David, they didn't need to intervene in the subsequent matters. Others would take care of it. The most urgent thing now was to quickly find out where James had gone. However, when Emily and Sophia tried to inquire, they found that very few people knew his whereabouts. James's parents divorced when he was a child, and he was abandoned, with no further contact. He didn't have many friends. His best childhood friends were Emily and Sophia, but now they were all blocked by him. His house was sold and burned down, leaving only a pile of ashes with no clues left behind. Suddenly, Emily remembered something and took out her phone to dial a number. The call connected quickly. In her urgency, she didn't even greet the person on the other end before getting straight to the point. "Teacher, did James ask you to change his major later?" The teacher replied, "Yes, he changed to North City University. I told him his grades were more than enough for North City University. I don't know what he was thinking before, insisting on applying to South University. It's not that South University is bad, but if you can attend the highest ranking institution, it's naturally better." Fortunately, he finally came around in the end. As soon as she got the news, Emily, who couldn't be bothered to listen to the teacher's rambling, hung up the phone. But Sophia, who had been quietly waiting beside her, suddenly froze when she heard the name North City University. North City University in City A was 1,884 kilometers away from South City, where they were. He actually went all the way to such a distant place alone. He hated them so much that the once timid James, who was most afraid of being alone, actually dared to run all the way to City A just to avoid them. Emily glanced at the silent Sophia and asked with a deep gaze, "Are you going to find him?" "Of course I am." Sophia looked up at Emily and answered firmly. She was going to find James and tell him that those past actions weren't her true intentions, that she had merely been deceived, and that they had never truly wanted to sever ties with him. And upon seeing the determination in Emily's eyes, Sophia understood that they shared the same thoughts. Chapter 16 At North City University. After I finished registering, I received the dormitory key. There were 4 beds in the dormitory, and I was the last one to arrive. After exchanging greetings, the others began to organize their luggage. I was the first to finish. I had very few belongings. Besides the bedding provided by the school, I only brought a few pieces of clothing. Next to my bed was a boy from South City named David. He wore black, framed glasses, but didn't seem dull at all. Instead, he appeared lively and cheerful. Seeing that I had so few things, he curiously came over and asked, "Why do you have so few things?" I nodded and explained softly, "Most of them can be bought anyway. Nothing is particularly important, so I plan to buy them here." Hearing what I said, David immediately showed envy. What foresight! When I came here, my mom stuffed me with a lot of things, saying I'd need them here. But in the end, I was almost exhausted just carrying the suitcase all the way. Although he was complaining, there was a hidden sense of happiness in his words. My parents were an arranged couple. Due to their incompatible personalities, they've been arguing constantly. They have little affection for me, just seeing me as a task-fulfilled child. Naturally, I've never really felt their love. Later, they divorced, and I became a burden that both of them wanted to get rid of. At this moment, hearing David talk about his bittersweet troubles, I smiled at him and said, "That's still their way of showing love for you." After packing up and familiarizing myself with the campus, the sky gradually darkened. After a whole day of busyness, I fell into a deep sleep, completely exhausted. The next morning marked the official start of classes at North City University. I woke up early to wash up, but when I went downstairs, I heard a commotion. The crowd was abuzz with chatter. Who were those 2 people? I didn't see them during the freshman orientation. Just because you're in charge of the freshman orientation doesn't mean you've seen everyone. But they are so beautiful. I've never heard of them before, so they must be new this year. Are they waiting for someone? I wonder who's so lucky to be waited on by 2 stunning beauties. The murmurs reached my ears. I raised an eyebrow, curious about what kind of beauties could draw such a crowd. Following the flow of people, I was shocked to see two familiar figures. It was Emily and Sophia. The two stood on the campus avenue, their eyes scanning the crowd. With just one glance, they locked onto me as I came downstairs. James! The simultaneous shout caught everyone's attention. The two of them took long strides and hurried towards me. Seeing this, I instinctively changed direction and walked, then jogged away. But suddenly, I felt a tug on my wrist, forcing me to stop. I looked down and saw that Emily and Sophia had caught up and grabbed my hand. I forcefully pulled my hand away, looking at them with caution in my eyes. What are you two doing here? The distance between South City and City A is almost 2,000 kilometers. How could you suddenly come here? Sophia asked. James, why did you block us? Didn't you say you'd give us an answer on the first day of school, telling us who you really choose? Sophia bit her lip, looking a bit wronged. Even if they had favored David before, they had been childhood friends for 15 years, growing up together. How could their relationship have become so strained? She thought that by saying this, she was giving me an opportunity to reconcile, but unexpectedly, I didn't care for it at all. I said, haven't you two had enough of this farce? I smirked sarcastically, leaving Emily and Sophia completely confused. But they just assumed I was still upset, so they tried to persuade me. James, did you misunderstand something? Emily tried to reach for my hand again, but I avoided it. I put away my smile and looked at them coldly. I thought my meaning was clear. Emily, Sophia, if you like David, just go after him. It's not like I'm forcing you to stay by my side. What? Just because I didn't accept your so-called pursuit, does David have to threaten to disappear? Since you like him so much and are willing to disregard everything for him, I'll step back. You three can be as lovey-dovey as you want, but I beg you, considering we've known each other for 15 years, please stay away from me. I've already hidden 1,000 miles away in City A. Why can't you just leave me alone? And Emily and Sophia froze the moment they heard my words. Chapter 17. Emily said, No, that's not it, James. We all like you. When have we ever liked David? Are you misunderstanding something? Emily forced a smile, her voice hesitant and her eyes darting away. But then, thinking about how she had already cut ties with David, she regained some confidence. James, the person we like has always been you. We're all still waiting for your answer. How could we like someone else? Chapter 17. Sophia continued Emily's words, her gaze softening into a deep affection once again. After a moment's pause, she said, In the past few days, apart from David, in everyone else's eyes, the person we like is you. When have we ever truly had anything to do with David? As she thought about this, a sense of calm settled in her heart, but it was short-lived. I turned on my phone's recording, and the audio played their voices from before. Don't make us chase George, okay? We can't pretend anymore. Every moment with George is torture. The person we really like is you. Why can't we stay by your side? Are you going to persuade him? I'm too lazy to go. I'm tired of pretending. If you want to go, you go. I want to go find him. He should have received the notice by now and must be eager to share his joy with us. I want to go find him. His death has nothing to do with me. The only person I care about has always been you. George, stop messing around. First of all, this isn't something to joke about. Even if it were, we're all classmates and school is starting soon. You don't need to ruin someone's future. A series of audio recordings were released, and I still maintained a cold expression, but my voice carried a hint of sarcasm. And let's not forget that one of you stole my design draft to give to him, and another gave away the safety amulet I begged for, making excuses about not being able to deliver it to me, only to run off and help someone else move their luggage. If your love is built on stepping on your partner to lift others up, I have nothing to say and I can't accept it. Emily and Sophia turned pale as soon as the first audio started playing. Had James actually known all the truth long ago? As I was about to leave, an inexplicable emptiness filled Emily and Sophia's hearts, as if something precious had completely slipped away from them. Sophia still felt a bit unwilling and wanted to defend herself. But, can't we, based on the affection we've had for the past 15 years, just pretend that everything before never happened? Emily said, James, I know we were wrong to you in the past. Can we forget what happened and start over? The pain in Emily's eyes was evident. She really couldn't accept that their 15 year relationship had been shattered because of the sinister David. Looking at their expressions, still seemingly unrepentant, as if not agreeing to their plea made me the heartless one. I could only find it laughable. What do you mean I have nothing to lose? In your eyes, was it nothing when I was knocked out and thrown into the sea? Was it nothing when I almost lost everything and couldn't get justice? Was it nothing when the design draft I worked so hard on was stolen? No need, Emily, Sophia. I never realized before that your true nature was so rotten. I shook my head with a bitter smile. The faces that once seemed so familiar now felt like those of strangers. By the way, from the moment you said that I shouldn't ruin David's future even though he tried to destroy me, you two were nothing but betrayers in my eyes. Chapter 18. Sophia still wanted to hold on, but when her hand reached out, I forcefully swatted it away. Don't touch me. You make me feel dirty. I looked at them with deep disgust in my eyes. Now you remember our 15 years of friendship? But did you think about it when you mocked me because of David's words? When I was knocked out and thrown into the sea? When you rushed to save David while I was left to suffer? When you colluded with the South City Police Station to stop me from suing David? When you took my design draft and safety amulet to please him? So now you come and talk to me about friendship? Is it because you've lost your precious David? My words pierced through their defenses. Emily's face turned pale and then red, wanting to retort, but not knowing where to start. I don't have time to play these games with you. Step aside. I didn't want to look at them any longer and walked straight past them. Behind me, Sophia held back her tears, watching my back, and her eyes couldn't help but redden. She murmured, James, we were just deceived back then. We will prove it to you. When we reveal the truth to the public, will you still be able to forgive us? Emily didn't know what to do. She only knew that making things right might be their only chance to seek James's forgiveness. The two of them bought plane tickets and returned to South City that same day. Since James cared about David's actions, they decided to prove to him that even if they once had feelings for David, it was all in the past. From now on, there would only be James in their lives. On the official opening day of South University, a big news story broke. A certain freshman at South University had been behaving poorly. Out of jealousy for a classmate's excellence, he deliberately hired someone to harm the classmate. Even the award-winning work he presented not long ago was stolen from that classmate's original manuscript. Not only that, he also intentionally injured a classmate at a gathering and threw him into the sea, suspected of attempted murder. Because no names were mentioned, everyone was still speculating whether this incident was true or not and who the person could be. At the welcome party, under the gaze of the crowd, David, who was performing on stage, was taken away by the police. This confirmed the rumor. Some people recalled that on the day of registration, the two new campus beauties, Emily and Sophia, seemed to have a close relationship with that freshman. When they quietly inquired, they saw one shaking her head and the other sighing. Emily said, "We were classmates since high school. Back then, he seemed harmless, and seeing his pitiful look, we brought him into our circle. Who would have thought he would actually harm our friend, whom we grew up with, out of jealousy?" Sophia said, "Yes, the person who got hurt was our friend. We never expected that we would let the wolf into the house. It turns out we were the ones who harmed him." They looked completely clueless, as if they had just learned the truth, and their faces were filled with heartache, which made the classmates who came to inquire sigh in sympathy. Someone said, "It's really hard to know a person's heart just by looking at their face. You can't blame yourselves entirely for this. After all, when we first met him, we never expected him to be so malicious and shameless." David was completely kicked out of the apartment by them. Emily and Sophia packed all his belongings neatly and threw them out. Chapter 19. That night after Emily and Sophia left, David thought they would be busy chasing after James. But the next day, they returned. Remembering their earlier words about paying the price for mistakes, he was terrified that they would come back for revenge. At first, he thought they were just distancing themselves, and he began to keep a low profile, thinking that as long as he could get through these university years safely, he could sell the gifts they gave him and escape far away. With his degree, he believed he could live well. As for the welcome party, he had signed up earlier and couldn't back out. Now, without Emily and Sophia's support, he knew he had to be careful and could only pray that nothing would go wrong. But during the welcome party, while he was performing on stage, a group of police suddenly appeared and took him away. He finally realized that he was the one everyone had been whispering about. He shouted, "I want to see Emily and Sophia. I want to see them." He made a scene and refused to cooperate, but Emily and Sophia were no longer afraid of him. Instead, they directly submitted all the evidence to the police. By the time the news reached me, everything had been settled. David was sentenced to 3 years in prison for intentional injury. Despite the solid evidence, he still refused to admit guilt or show remorse, and ultimately, he was expelled from South University. On the day everything was over, City A welcomed its first snowfall. Emily and Sophia were waiting under the dormitory building with umbrellas. From a distance, I looked at them. After a few months apart, they seemed more composed, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. Seeing me approach, smiles appeared on their faces. "James." They couldn't wait any longer and stepped forward. But to their surprise, I walked straight past them and ran towards someone behind them. I said, "David, it's snowing quite heavily today. What made you suddenly think of bringing me food? You weren't this kind before when the weather was nicer." The other David grinned and said, "Isn't it because it's the first snow of the year? It's so meaningful." Chapter 20. James, I wanted to ask you for a favor. I don't look good in photos. Could you take a few for me? David pleaded. I replied, "All right. For the sake of this meal, I'll reluctantly agree." "Good brother, you're the best," he exclaimed. Just as I was about to leave with David, Sophia called out to me in a panic, "James." I didn't stop, continuing to lead David forward. But David curiously turned back. "James, why do I hear someone calling you?" "Really? Maybe you heard wrong," I said, maintaining a calm expression as I walked on. However, I hadn't gone far when someone grabbed my wrist again. I paused and sighed inwardly. Why did these two always seem to be haunting me? "James, why are you hiding from us?" Sophia's tone carried a trace of unspoken grievance as she held my hand tightly, refusing to let go no matter how much I tried to shake her off. Emily, with her other hand resting on David's shoulder, lagged a step behind. She couldn't grab my other hand, so she blocked my path to prevent me from running away again. After breaking free, David looked back and forth between us, then glanced at my slightly downturned mouth. He suddenly felt like he shouldn't be here at this moment. Realizing I couldn't avoid this, I decided to face it. Letting go of David's shoulder, I said, "David, go wait for me over there for a bit. I need to talk to them alone." David naturally didn't refuse. Pointing to the playground not far away, he waved at me. "Then I'll go over first. Come to the playground when you're done chatting." I nodded, watching David run towards the playground. Only then did I turn back to look at Emily and Sophia. I reached out and pried open Sophia's fingers one by one. The smile that had been on my face when I was with David disappeared completely. I glared at them coldly, my eyes filled with impatience. "Well, what do you want this time?" The stark contrast in my attitude stung them. Sophia lowered her eyes and said humbly, "James, we've thought carefully about what you said last time. Our actions back then were indeed inappropriate, and we owe you an apology." As she spoke, she presented a box with both hands. Emily also handed over a judgment document in a timely manner. Sophia continued, "We've already explained to the organizers about the last design draft. It was David who stole your design draft to enter the competition, so this award should rightfully belong to you. Also, regarding the previous incidents where David tried to harm you, we've sent him to prison. James, we've made things right. Can we start over?" I received the trophy, the certificate of honor, and the design draft with my name signed on it. The judgment document showed that many things had indeed returned to their original state. My design draft was back, and David had met his end. It seemed that everything had finally been put right, but for me, it was too little, too late. Moreover, not everything could truly go back to the way it was. I carefully put away the design draft, but sent back the other items unchanged. Seeing the returned trophy and judgment document, Emily and Sophia were taken aback. "James, what does this mean?" they asked. I replied, "It's winter now, and it's cold. If Miss Emily and Miss Sophia have nothing else, please leave." After saying this, I was about to turn and leave. Seeing me about to walk away, Sophia suddenly grew angry and raised her voice. "James, didn't we help you get the justice you wanted? What else are you dissatisfied with? Even if you want to make a scene, you should know when to stop." Emily still stood in front of me, but her furrowed brows revealed her inner thoughts. At that moment, She also thought I was being unreasonable, not knowing when to accept their olive branch. Sophia's raised voice attracted the attention of passers-by. They started whispering among themselves, and some even pointed and gossiped openly. Emily and Sophia had never experienced such humiliation. They pressed their lips together, surrounded by a gloomy atmosphere, but in the end, they didn't say anything more. I wasn't afraid of those gazes. After all, from my perspective, I wasn't in the wrong. I sneered, not hiding my disdain for them. I'm dissatisfied because I'm being reasonable. Sophia. Emily, I never asked you to do anything, did I? And as for helping me, weren't you both part of the problem in the first place? Chapter 21. If it weren't for you two stopping me from reporting the case back then, if it weren't for you stealing my design draft to please your crush, would I still be waiting for you to sort this out now? My blunt words made them blush and left them speechless. I continued, South City is far from City A, ladies. I hope we won't meet again. I was about to take my final glance and leave, but after walking a short distance, I heard Sophia's voice behind me. I'm sorry, James. I spoke without thinking earlier, but we truly know we were wrong. Do you really have to be so heartless? Won't you even give us a chance to make amends? By the end, her voice was trembling slightly. After a long silence, Emily finally spoke. Besides, you promised to tell us your final choice. I turned back to look at Emily and Sophia, who still stood there stubbornly, refusing to leave. In the falling snowflakes, their figures looked lonely and desolate. I suddenly remembered the year we first met. It was also a snowy day like this. I was only 3 years old, led by the butler while my parents, each engrossed in their own affairs, went about their business. After bringing me to that place, the butler also started handling the servants' matters. Through the fence, I saw Emily and Sophia playing together in another yard. Their parents watched from behind, worried that something might happen to them. The two, playing happily, looked at me with eager eyes and waved. Brother, do you want to come and play with us? We grew up together, from the same kindergarten to elementary school, middle school, and high school. But from the moment David appeared in our first year of high school, the course of our lives changed. In fact, when I think back, I still can't figure out when exactly they started liking David, and when their feelings for him became so all-consuming that they completely ignored our 15-year friendship, as if they had lost all sense of reason. It hadn't snowed in South City for a long time. Now, we were facing each other in the snow again, but there was an unbridgeable gap between us. We could never go back to the time before the misunderstandings. I smiled at them and said, You want the answer? Fine. I'll tell you. From the very beginning, my answer was no. Emily, Sophia, I wouldn't choose either of you. With that, I turned and walked towards the playground. This time, they didn't say anything, and I didn't look back. Sophia asked Emily, Was it really all our fault? I gradually disappeared into the thick snow-filled crowd, wearing a white down jacket. Sophia's voice was filled with melancholy. Deep down, she felt a heaviness that made her want to cry, but she couldn't. She could only feel the bitterness in her throat. Emily didn't answer. She just stared blankly in the direction I had gone. She had never felt such a profound sense of loss, as if she had truly lost me forever. 15 years of friendship, sacrificed for a false 3-year infatuation. David asked, Who were those two people just now? I told you someone was calling you, and you said I must have misheard. A cold wind blew, making David's nose turn red. He wrapped himself tightly in his coat, leaving only his eyes exposed. Although he was from South City, as a student, it was normal that he didn't recognize Emily and Sophia from the influential Lou and Sue families. I didn't directly mention their names. I just shook my head and dismissed it. Just former friends. And soon, we won't even be that. What happened? The question slipped out of David's mouth before he could stop himself. Realizing it was impolite, he chuckled awkwardly. Forget it. If it's not convenient to talk about, just pretend I didn't ask. Chapter 22. David and I took several amazing photos of the snowy scenery. Only then were we both satisfied and returned to the dormitory. As soon as we got back, David noticed me turning on the computer. Curious about what I was doing, he happened to catch a glimpse of the screen. He immediately leaned in. I swear, I really just saw it by accident. I didn't mean to peek, David said seriously, raising his hand as if taking an oath. Then he pointed at the news article on my computer screen. Are you also interested in the recent events at South University? Let me tell you, that guy David really went too far. Just because he was jealous of someone else's background, he did all those terrible things. And those two girls, they were just trying to be nice and help him, but it all went wrong. As I listened, I realized something was off. Looking back at the interview, I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. So this was their idea of making things right. They pushed all the blame onto David while presenting themselves as innocent victims. The one who hurt me wasn't just David. In fact, Emily and Sophia's actions had wounded me more deeply. It's like how a person can accept the sudden cruelty of a stranger, but it's the betrayal of a friend that truly cuts to the core. To me, David was no different from a stranger, but Emily and Sophia had been by my side for 15 years. We had overcome countless difficulties together, and they should have been the most important people in my life. Yet, they chose to hurt me for someone else. And when it came time to clean up the mess, they shifted all the blame onto David. Besides, they had loved David so deeply before. How could they give up on those feelings so easily? I couldn't understand it, and I wasn't going to waste my time trying. Eventually, the truth would come out. During the winter break, I returned to South City. Honestly, I never thought that after saying I would settle in City A and never come back, I'd be back just half a year later. I didn't plan to stay long. As soon as I got off the plane, I went straight to the prison to see David. I wanted to know the whole truth about what had happened back then. I never imagined that Emily and Sophia would turn against the person they once loved just because I left. But when I met David, every word he said was like a dagger, and not a single one gave me the answers I sought. Frustrated, I rubbed my forehead, trying to suppress my irritation. What happened back then wasn't just your doing. Chapter 23. I don't believe you truly love them so much that you would be willing to protect them. If he really loved Emily and Sophia, then why has he been hell-bent on making them marry me, from the last life to this one? His bitter words suddenly trailed off. After a long, pregnant pause, he asked hesitantly, "What are you going to help me with?" But then, as if realizing the absurdity of the question, he scoffed. "They're completely wrapped around your finger now. Would you really let them go?" I found myself struggling to understand David's twisted mindset. After a moment of heavy silence, I let out a weary sigh. "You just need to tell me everything." Through the cold, reflective glass of the meeting room, David stared at me, his eyes clouded with a storm of thoughts. Suddenly, he threw his head back and laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed off the walls. "You and they are cut from the same cloth, equally ruthless. As soon as your precious interests are threatened, you'll strike down anyone in your path." I shook my head in response. His accusation didn't surprise me, but the explanation that followed left him stunned. "I'm nothing like them. It's true. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my interests, but I always stay within the boundaries of the law and reason." I knew better than to directly sue Emily and Sophia. As the sole heirs of the powerful Liu and Shu families, their every word and action carried the weight of their dynasties. They'd already proven they could manipulate the entire South City into turning a blind eye to my case once. I had no doubt they could do it again. So, I decided to fight fire with fire, using the same underhanded tactics they'd employed against me. On the day major universities reopened, a piece of explosive news spread like wildfire across the city. Whispers and speculations filled the air. "Have you heard? That freshman who got arrested last year? Turns out he had some powerful backers pulling the strings. Otherwise, how could an ordinary freshman get away with all that? And why didn't the victim report it? Because those backers were protecting him. And who could those backers be? It's no secret how chummy the Liu family and those two Shu ladies were with him. They claimed they knew nothing, but who else would know more than the victim himself? And get this, they were childhood friends. No wonder they chose their lover over their friend." As the topic gained momentum, the true power brokers of the Liu and Shu families finally took notice. Panicked, they immediately launched into damage control mode, resorting to their usual playbook of suppressing negative publicity. But this time, their old tricks backfired spectacularly, igniting a wave of public outrage. Their official social media accounts were flooded with angry comments and scathing criticism. "Can't you come up with something new? Same old song and dance. With all that power, why can't you produce any evidence? Trying to sweep this under the rug again? Guilty conscience much." Despite their desperate efforts, the situation only spiraled further out of control. The PR team soon realized they were up against a skilled opponent, someone deliberately fanning the flames behind the scenes. In a last-ditch effort, they tried to smear me, the original victim. He's just a spineless coward who was too afraid to speak up when the incident happened. And now, instead of owning up to his own weakness, he's slandering the very people who try to help him. What an ungrateful wretch. Some netizens bought into the smear campaign, thinking it wasn't uncommon for victims to stay silent out of fear. But others saw through the lies, and a fierce war of words erupted online. Amid the chaos, the spotlight unexpectedly turned on me. People dug up my social media accounts, bombarding me with insults, support, and endless questions about the truth. Just when the Liu and Shu families thought they could weather the storm, a real name online report sent shockwaves through the city and catapulted them to the top of the trending lists. Thanks to my habit of documenting everything, I had the video of my initial police report and the audio recordings of Emily and Sophia pressuring me to drop the case. When I made these public, it was like dropping a nuclear bomb. The evidence was crystal clear, laying bare the entire sordid tale. From our once close childhood bond, to how Emily and Sophia had blindly chased after me to win David's favor, to David's repeated attempts to destroy me. It detailed how they'd gone from ignorance to actively protecting him, and finally, to stealing my designs to please him. Their love for David had become so all-consuming that it had trampled over the law. It was only when they discovered his true, manipulative nature that they'd turned on him out of humiliation and anger. Chapter 24. The gravity of the situation caught the attention of the authorities. After a thorough and relentless investigation, the situation spiraled in a direction no one could have predicted or controlled. The once mighty Liu and Shu families finally fell from grace, and a long list of their past misdeeds came to light: corrupt official, business dealings, bribery scandals, and more. One by one, the implicated officials were removed from their positions. I came face to face with Emily and Sophia again. The confident, radiant glow that had once defined them was gone, replaced by haggard, defeated expressions that spoke volumes about the hell they'd been through. Their eyes, filled with a complex mix of emotions, met mine. Do you really hate us this much? Enough to throw away 15 years of friendship and push us to the brink? I almost laughed at the irony. Shouldn't I? Don't bring up that 15-year friendship. You were the ones who threw it away first. When you used me as a pawn to entertain David, when you forced me to drop the case against him and colluded with the entire South City police force to silence me, when you stole my design draft and gave away the safety amulet I'd begged for, at every one of those moments, you were the ones betraying our friendship. And now, when the consequences finally catch up to you, you want to talk about friendship? I'm sorry, they said, their voices filled with sorrow. In that moment, they finally seemed to accept that there was no mending the broken bond between us. Their so-called attempts at reconciliation had been nothing more than wishful thinking. Half a month later, the Liu and Shu families announced their bankruptcies one after another. Overnight, the once pampered heiresses became pariahs, facing public scorn and humiliation at every turn. Despite their fathers' best efforts to shield them, life at South University was now a nightmare. Gone were the days of adoring followers. Instead, they were met with cold stares and whispered insults. And with the massive debts left in the wake of their family's collapse, their once luxurious lives were in ruins. Without the protection of their powerful families, I finally succeeded in suing Sophia for theft. Although the design draft had been returned, she was ordered to pay compensation for emotional distress, combined with damages for the earlier malicious slander. The final amount, just over $50,000, would have been pocket change to them in the past, but now it was a crushing blow. Out of a strange sense of mercy, I extended the repayment deadline. Compared to the millions and billions they owed elsewhere, my claim was a drop in the bucket. I wasn't out to destroy them. I just wanted the justice that had been denied to me for so long. When everything finally settled, I invited David and our other dorm mates out for a celebratory feast. It was a celebration of my newfound freedom, a toast to finally cutting the last ties with Emily and Sophia. From now on, our relationship would be nothing more than that of creditor and debtor. Cheers. The years-long battle had been exhausting. 3 years had passed in the blink of an eye since the whole ordeal began. This gathering, meant to be a joyous occasion, might very well be the last time we all sat down to eat together. David, who had drunk more than his fair share, started singing off. His words slurred but sincere. James, you're amazing. After everything you've been through, you're still standing strong. I don't think I could have done it. I smiled, raising my glass. Feelings aren't the be-all and end-all of life. No matter what challenges we face, this life is ours. We have to stay true to ourselves. What's next for you? One of my roommates asked. After all, not everyone could have withstood the pressure from two powerful corporations and come out victorious. With your courage and determination, I'm sure you'll succeed at anything you set your mind to. I'm going to start preparing for grad school, and in the long run, I still want to be a designer. I know I'll build a better life for myself.